Sales Proformance Show.
Welcome back to the Sales Proformance Show, everybody. I'm your host, Dave Slyman, and today we have a special guest, Joe Nunziata, who brings a unique blend of spirituality, business acumen. This guy is world-class. I met him at a sales training event a few weeks back, and we just hit it off right away. He's got such a great philosophy and understanding of sales. So if you're a sales professional, or you're building a sales organization, or you're leading a sales team, you're going to want to listen to this podcast. He's an accomplished author, speaker, life coach, trainer. He's transforming people in the right way in the sales industry. And it's really inspiring. We talked a little bit about his background. We got to know each other. And more importantly, has a great book, Spiritual Selling, which we'll talk about today. And we're going to dive in to his journey and explore a lot of this. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Dave, good to see you again. Thank you so much.
Great to see you again, man. I'm super excited about the show today. And just listen, I know you've been in sales for a while, and give our guest, I always ask this question in the beginning, but not too long of a runway of where you've come from and where you've been, but more importantly, where you are today and what you're doing.
Yeah, I started sales kind of early, although I think everything is sales, even for when we're kids. You're selling right away, right? You want to get a later curfew, you're selling, right? That's selling. People don't realize that. You're trying to get a date, you're selling, right? It's all selling. I know a lot of people have a negative connotation. I started off selling actually beer and soda off the back of a truck in Brooklyn. That was my first sales experience, walking into stores. We filled up the truck in the morning. We drove out. It was like we went to stores all day until the truck was empty. And our incentive was the faster we sold out the truck, the faster the day was over. So that was kind of our goal. And that was kind of my first thing. I was a bartender in between that, which was in New York City. That was actually a terrific experience for sales because, as a bartender, you get used to talking to strangers, building rapport, all the skills that we use in sales. I didn't realize that at that time because I was having fun, but did that and then got into selling advertising and, started with newspapers when there was such a thing, got into direct mail marketing very early, also freestanding inserts in newspapers, cable TV, radio, digital. So I've kind of done the whole thing. One of the things I was a tremendous student. I was always learning, wanted to learn. And, I always was looking at the top people because as you and I know, you look at an organization, they're all the same. You got the 5-10% at the top and a bunch of people in the middle and a bunch of people at the bottom who are ready to, waiting to be fired. So I was trying to say, what makes these people different? I always, was looking at that and looking at the different things and then started to get into more of, it's not just what they're doing. There was a certain energy, there was a certain feeling, there was a certain vibe that they had that was different. So that's kind of, eclectically how I went through the journey.
So it more so, I love this, the how you're breaking this down, because there's such a small percentage of people who are really successful. If you look at sales professionals as a whole, there's really a smaller stack of people who are in the elite status, and then you have your average people, and then your below average people, like in a roundabout way, who are either looking for another career or going to be fired. Tell me, in your experience of all your years of training and in the mindset, we're going to talk about mindset and all this good stuff, but what is the glowing, or maybe it's a few things, but what is the glowing difference between someone who's a top performer versus everyone below?
There's a couple of things that I see, and we see this across all areas of life, right? We see it in sports, we see it in business, we see there's only a small percentage that are really in that space. One of the first things I identified was willingness. The top people are willing to do whatever has to be done. And I would see this all the time, and I know you and I have very similar backgrounds, right? So, you would see people and say, wow, this guy wants to go home at 3:00, and this guy's going to go out at 8:00 because that's the time that guy's in the restaurant. And there was a willingness to do what had to be done. And that was a big thing I saw right away. Like there was a different mentality. It was like, I'm willing to do extra if that's what has to be done. That didn't mean you had to do it, but they were willing to do that. So that to me was one of the first things that I noticed. And the second thing that I thought was really important, that it was funny, but I started to notice it as I was learning more. The people who succeeded expected to succeed, and the other people were hoping to succeed. There was, and it may sound like a minor thing, but those people, these guys would walk out and they would say to me, I was a young kid starting out in my 20s, and I would try to, catch on to these guys who were older. To me, they were old, but now I know they're not. But back at that time, but now, like, these older guys, and I would be like, what do you do? Like, what's going on? And he goes, let me tell you something, Joe. He said, you see all these guys sitting around here drinking coffee and they're complaining and talking about all this BS. He said, by the time they get out the door, I already have a deal in.
Yeah.
That was the mentality. I'm not here to jerk around. I'm not saying I want to be friendly and all that, but it was just like, I'm going out to do business. I'm not here to fool. So they knew, it was almost like, I know that's happening. And these guys would say, oh, I hope I can get a deal today. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it was everything. So, this is when I started to see the difference between this person does everything that they're supposed to do. They do the presentation, they do the paperwork, they do it right. They follow the steps, all that stuff. But these other people, they did that too. And sometimes they were unorthodox, but they had that intangible feeling. And I said, that's something that you have to have within and then bring that out in others, which we do as coaches and trainers. But that was what I saw as a big difference.
I want to hit on that point because I was taught this years ago, just like you were talking about. And again, there's so much alignment between us in our conversations. But even my kids, we have conversations around the idea of being successful. And I always told them, do more than you're asked. Okay. Because what's the difference? Okay. You'll see companies, right? They train people the same. They give them the same tools. They're selling the same products. And you've got someone who's making $75,000 a year and you got somebody making $750,000 a year. What is the difference? No. And believe it or not, what you're talking about here is someone who does just a little bit more. They make some calls a little bit more. They walk into doors a little bit more. They work on their presentation just a little bit more. They read books a little bit more. They wake up early, just a little bit earlier each day. But it's those things that you compound that make a huge difference. I gotta really highlight that fact that what you first talked about, because you said it sounds so small. It is small, but when you add small results up like that, it can be the difference between, like I said, making $75,000 a year or $750,000 a year, because you just want it a little bit more. And I love that point. I think it's fantastic. Let's talk mindset. Okay. Listen, this term is used a lot, but I can't not touch on this in the world of sales. How do you recommend cultivating a positive and resilient mindset? Because you talked about confidence as well here a minute ago. Yeah. But what are your strategies and what's your take on this?
Well, again, I just said overused term. Mindset, there's a difference. Okay, so when I got into the learning energy work, which I incorporated into this work now in this book, but there's mentality is one thing. So I'm going to give you the example I always use because it's the example that makes it clear. Everybody, how many people do you know, Dave, they want to lose weight?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. So I want to lose weight. I went on a diet. You have a multi-billion-dollar weight loss industry, and every year the obesity rate is going up. So if I say my mindset is, I want to do it, I'm buying a program, I'm joining whatever I'm doing, what's the disconnect between mentally me saying, I want to do it, and actually creating it? So the difference is the internal feelings and your belief system and the energy that you're holding. So the disconnect is, what you're trying to do is align your beliefs and your mind with your feelings internally. Okay. That's the disconnect. So I could go out and I've worked with these guys. And it's funny, the other day, because I knew we were doing this call, and I was thinking about a guy. When I was young, I started out selling, and within about 6 months, my manager came to me. He said, "Hey, Joe, and it was a commission job. So he said, "Hey, Joe, listen." And I was like, I had just started. But I had like, I guess, a natural whatever knack. But the guy said, we want you to take the new guys out, and we're going to pay you like an extra $50 to do it. I was like, yeah, I don't care. Just take them at the carpet. And there was this guy, I never forget, his name was Dave. You know how we've been doing this so long, and certain people you just remember. I just remember the guy. And he was like an older guy, and he was trying to do well in this. And he was the nicest guy you ever saw. He was trying so hard, and he's out there, and he comes out with me, and I'm watching him, and eventually he lasted about a month, and he got fired.
Okay.
And I said to myself, wow, this was like the nicest guy. He really wanted to do it. He tried really hard. He just didn't have the feeling of confidence, and he also didn't have the feeling of belief.
Yeah.
And he didn't have it. He just didn't have that. He was almost like, hey, if I just keep working hard, something good will happen. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the idea is to say, how I always say to people, and this was the beginning of my energy training work, was you have to keep asking yourself, not what am I doing, but what am I feeling? Because that's the truth. You could look like you're doing something, but if your feeling is not there, you're not going to create the result that you want.
Yes.
This was the game changer for me, because I was the guy who worked like a demon and went bankrupt twice by 30 years old. So I knew I didn't go to college. I'm not saying I was a genius, but I was smart enough. I was working hard. I knew what I was doing, and I was working and all I did was burn myself out and go bankrupt twice. And I said, this is what got me going, because I said, I'm missing something.
Missing something. And
that was it. It was like my internal feelings and beliefs were not, first of all, I was bad at receiving money. That was not a good thing for a salesperson.
Yeah.
I was bad at receiving compliments. These are things you're looking at within yourself. Okay, how do I feel when somebody's positive? How do I feel when somebody says, hey, you're doing a great job? Does that feel comfortable for you? If it doesn't, that means you've got something going on. So we're looking for these internal these feelings. Other people would say to me, hey, you know what? I got to 70 grand a year. That seems to be about where I am.
Yeah.
So you're already saying, this is it for me. I'm done. Energetically, your energy says, okay, that's what you believe. That's what you're going to create. And then you walk around and say, yeah, I was in sales. It was just tough. You can make about this much money. So it's a subtlety, but it's critically important.
Yeah. I think the feeling I have, in what you're saying here, I have a very similar philosophy, because again, I see this a lot with sales organizations. Again, they give them tools, they give them the presentation or whatever product knowledge, everything that they have to do, and they put them out there. And what happens is people work really, really hard, and they start getting their asses kicked. And then they get their asses kicked. And it's not that they don't want to, and then they start slowing down, right? And it's not that they don't want to work hard. What they don't like is the feeling of the outcome.
Right.
And when your feeling of the outcome is shit, you're not going to do it anymore.
Right.
And I think that's what you're talking about, is that, and a little bit of a different light, but that internal feeling of how you're associating with it, right?
Yeah, it's also, I think, when you go into anything, like especially sales, it's like you're going to go into it. You have to set, I think it's important. This is where I think management has to do a good job, right?
Yes.
You have to set the expectation. You're going to get beat up, especially if they're new. If they're seasoned, they know that. Hey, you and I've been out there. You're going to get your face kicked for a while, and then you have to get through that part of it. And if you can't get through that part of it, you're not making it. So I would always say to people, okay, this first, 3-6 months, you're going to get banged around here a little bit. You've got to be able to deal with it and then get past that. And this is with anything, right? Anything it's like learning to play the guitar. It's like anything, the beginning, it's hard to do. It takes a while before you start feeling good about it. So you have to go out there and understand, you look at baseball, you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're making millions of dollars. You're failing 7 out of 10 times. So you've got to go into it with the understanding that, that's not the game. The game is not, I'm going to make every sale. The game is not, everyone will like me. It's like understanding how it works and saying, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing. And I understand that this is part of the learning process. You and I were talking about 10,000 hours, right?
Yes.
Like, as you and I are in the event, we're watching people get better, and then they're listening to us and they say, wow, you guys are so good. Yeah, we're doing We've done this for a long time. You have
We-
not. So
yeah.
it's like letting them understand that, I didn't roll out of bed and start doing it like that. Dave didn't roll out of bed and start doing it like that. So it's understanding that. And I think that's also something in today's society that we don't have, right? People don't want to work like that to become experts or whatever you want to call it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's important part.
It comes full circle, doing more of what you're asked.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to be mediocre, do what's asked of you and just stop there. But you're right. I mean, this is what we talked about in even the sessions you and I were in, is the ability to break through that threshold of, you got to get reps. You got to get reps. You got to get reps. You're going to get beat up, but you got to get reps. And then all of a sudden you break through this threshold, which I call the brink threshold. Once you break through the brink threshold, there's this inertia that happens and you just start getting it, but you're going to get kicked around everybody. You are going to get beat up, and you have to trust the process. You have to trust your training, and you have to trust your work ethic that you're going to break at this point, get through this threshold and move to the next level. But you're right. There's some people who are so close too. They get so close and they just quit because they just can't handle it.
It's funny. Ross Perot years ago, if you remember Ross
Oh,
Perot,
yeah.
and one of his quotes was, most people quit on the 1 yard line. They're like, they right there. They got to the 1 yard line. And it was funny. I was reading a story years ago about Mickey Mantle. Of course, we know Mickey. I'm from New York, so of course Yankees. But
Yeah.
Mickey Mantle, if people don't know who that is, was a legendary player for the Yankees, Hall of Famer, and so forth. And when he's from Oklahoma, he's like from the middle of the world. He's now going to go into baseball, and went into minor leagues and was terrible. And he was like really bad. And he said, and his father was a coal miner. And he said he went back home and he said to the father, you know what? I can't take it. He said, I can't do it. This is too much for me. And the father said, look at me. Is this what he said, you have a talent? And he said, you have to work hard, even though you have that talent. And he said, do you want to be like me, or do you want to fulfill what you can do? He went back, and of course he became Mickey Mantle. But this is Mickey Mantle. This is a guy who was one of the greatest players who got at every person. I always say to people, there's not a person in the world who you could speak to who will be honest. I don't care how successful they are in anything, who will not say to you, if they're going to be honest, you know what, I had doubts.
Yes.
I was not sure I could do it. I was not sure this was, or they started business. I didn't know if it was going to work. It didn't seem to look like it was happening. So you have to make this acceptable. This is part of the journey, is you're going to feel that and accept it. That's going to be the best thing you can do.
Yeah. And you got to stay positive, and you got to plow through it. You got to trust yourself. You got to trust the process. And listen, there are times, we both have been there, where we wanted to quit, or we just wanted to give in, and you just got to keep plowing through. And I can't stress that enough for everybody. You just got to keep plowing through. All right, let's talk about spiritual selling. All right, I want to talk to you about what inspired you to write this book, and I know it's the 2.0 version, but let's touch on that.
So what happened was that after I went through my own issues, I lost my dad young. I had a lot of things going on in my house. I was kind of fractured as a person, and I got into the energy work, which was really about learning how to identify emotional blocks and then clear the energy. It was something that I was learning how to do, and then I ended up meeting some amazing people. One woman who taught me how to clear energy out of what's called the chakra system, which is the energy system in your body. And that was kind of my inspiration. And as I was doing it, I said, well, everything's energy. You, me, everything is energy. The conversation we're having is energy. Everything that we're using is energy. And I say, if everything is energy, then this, and I was already at that point, had been in sales quite a while, so I was pretty good at it. But I said, why can't I overlay these principles into what I already know, which is the basic fundamentals of presenting and closing, all the stuff that we do. But adding that extra piece, that was the missing piece of the puzzle. Like, this is what's going to take you over the top. This is beyond, oh, here's a closing technique. Oh, here's the way to do this. Oh, here's the way you have to do it. And don't let them, you and I have been in those meetings, trap them, close them. So this was like, it's not about that. It's about understanding that if I can get my energy in a good space and apply, I call it in the book E squared. So it's energy and expertise. I want to I want to know as much as I can know. I want to be the best at what I do. Sitting in every training I could go. I can go to training tomorrow, and you and I know this. We could sit in training, even though and we'll sit there and be taking notes and say, wow, that was a good idea. Wow, I didn't think of that. Wow, and we're doing this forever. So it's that insatiable desire to keep getting better.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. It's not like, oh, I got to this point, I'm good. Michael Jordan didn't stop getting better. He kept getting better. And he would go back and say, okay, you know what, I didn't do this. I couldn't do that. I could do this better. That's the people who really succeed, because they understand I'm always here to learn and I always want to get better. And that's how I look at it. Every day I'm looking to do something better, to your point earlier, which is small adjustments, right? So look at the week, the year, 365 days. You make one adjustment a day for 365 days. That's a lot of momentum.
It's a lot of momentum.
And that's how you had to work. But it's like about the desire to want to be better is important. And you and I both know not everybody has that desire. They just kind of like, I want to go in, I want to get paid, I want to go home, and that's it. So the other thing I had to learn, which I think is important when you're running a sales organization, is not everybody's going to be like me.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to be Michael Jordan. People said, yeah, good. You read stories about him. He's not playing around. He's looking to win a championship. He's not playing. He's coming after you, and he's looking to win a championship. But he understood, okay, this guy's going to do this. This guy's going to do this. And I need to get the most out of each person, understanding they're all not going to be that level.
Yeah.
So I always look at myself as a coach or a manager or a trainer, whatever you want to call it. And I say, my job is to take this person and make them the best version of who they can be.
Best version.
And that's it.
Yep.
And, they're not, if I could take them from a 4 to a 7, and I can do that for everybody in my team, that's going to make a tremendous difference in our success, sales, how much money these people make. They're not all going to be 10s. I also have to accept that, because that's also something I see people do. Like they can't accept, okay, this person, that's it. You just got to keep trying to get them to that.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be that.
No.
And I think that's also important.
And it's funny, I had a guest on who said that, because I was like, well, the Steve Jobs, A players like to work with A players. And he said, I want B players who I can understand, or where I can understand a little bit more how to make them an A player. I'll take B players all day, because it comes back to what you said earlier too. It's not, what you're capable of, it's what you're willing to do. It's really, that is really probably a huge point of someone excelling from, the next level, is just putting in more work and doing things more. And you also talked a little bit about blocking and the chakras. My wife's into yoga very heavily, and she's talked to me about this a lot. And people self-sabotage themselves. They sabotage themselves because they're either blocked here. There's that where you just can't get through. You ever talk to someone and you just can't get through? You're just keep talking, and they're not listening to you. Either they're thinking about what they're going to say, or they're just blocked up completely. I'd like to dig in a little bit for someone who's really just like, man, I'm trying here, but I'm not feeling like I can really drive success right now. I'm not vibrating at a higher state. Talk to me about that technique. I'd love to hear, if you don't mind sharing, the technique on I guess unblocking chakras, or just kind of moving and manifesting into a way where your life starts turning out the way things start falling the way that you need them to fall, or you want them to fall, I should say, for that matter.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Dave. So one of the things that I think people don't understand, what's happening internally, is there's two different things going on. Okay. My mind is saying I want X, but I'm feeling Y. So what I have to do is understand, well, how do you feel? So I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm doing an event a number of years ago with small business owners. And I took people through a meditation. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Write down how much your revenue is this right now. And everybody wrote it down. So this one guy writes 500,000. So I said, okay, that's awesome. Now, what would be a number that would be dramatic and change your life and be let's go big. So he wrote down 5 million a year. So I put people in a meditation, and I said, all I want you to do is just kind of go through the feeling of what it's going to feel like to have that money coming in. Now, a lot of times in the beginning, your mind will say, oh, great, I could buy a new car, I could do this, I could do that. But then as you get deeper and you say, what's it going to feel like? All of a sudden, he started to hyperventilate. And I took him out of his fits because I said, I'm not a doctor. Let me get you out of his fits.
Right.
I said, Daryl, what happened? His name was Daryl, another thing you never forget, right? And he said, you know what, Joe? I felt so much pressure on my chest with the thought of managing that amount of money. So now, again, this is something, if I said to you, hey, you want to have $5 million a year coming into your business? Everybody, oh, yeah, I do. But these are the things that we're all carrying internally. And there's a lot of fear with being successful, believe it or not. Because it's like, oh, I'm going to make more money. People are going to judge me. I'm going to lose my friends. I don't know how people. So there's a lot of this stuff that we're carrying around that we don't know is there. And I see this actually also a lot with weight loss, where I've helped people lose weight, and they would freak out and they would say, I don't know what to do. People are looking at me differently. They're being nice to me. They're talking. It's like I'm getting more attention. I was used to being the fat guy in the corner and nobody cared. So there's a fear of change is one of the biggest fears we face as human beings, because human beings, going back to Stone Age, one of our first, which is coded to our DNA, is we want to be safe. We want to be safe. This is something like we went in a cave, we put a fire so the animals didn't come in at night and eat us. But this is coded to your DNA. So if you get to a place that I feel pretty safe here, and I'm going to venture outside of that, even though theoretically it's a better place, I don't feel safe there. Okay. And that's actually a very big psychological issue that a lot of people, and it's really an emotional issue, and it's a psychological issue. So what you want to do is get people to understand, and I say to them, yes, when you become, things will change when you're more successful. I said, I get some of the most horrific emails and messages you would ever see. And the more I got out into the public, and the more I would go out, I'd be speaking and doing my thing. Yeah. And people would just attack me for no reason. And but I said, okay. And, somebody said to me, you know what, Joe, you want to get out there? That's what's going to happen. That's going to happen. Like, it's like, you want to be successful. You want to get out in front of people. You want to talk about your beliefs and feelings. And I thought, I'm saying, hey, look, it happened to Jesus. It happened to Gandhi. It happened to Martin Luther King. So if you're going to go out there and be the person, so to speak, and say, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to make changes in my life, and I'm going to be bigger than I think I can be. And I don't mean that from an egoic position.
Sure.
There are people who are not going to like you, and there are people who are not going to understand you, and there are people who are going to be jealous of you, and all those things are going to happen. So people say, I'd rather stay where I am because I know how to manage this. I don't know how to manage that. And on an unconscious, energetic level, they choose to stay where they are.
Yeah. And it goes back to people don't like change, and you've got to be willing to, from a standpoint, what I always say, if they're not talking about you, then you're not doing enough. I mean, you should be, if you want to be successful. Now, there are some people who are great, in being in their bubble, so to speak. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a different, if you want to be successful and you want to be at the top of your game, you're going to have to sacrifice. But one of the things you're going to have to sacrifice is the fact that people are going to be pointing fingers at you, and you're not going to please everybody. And who gives a shit, to be honest with you? At this point, I'm at a point, and there was years, listen, I was very cognizant earlier in my career, and leading companies, worrying about what they're going to think or what they were saying. Yeah. And right now, it's all about elevating people who want to be elevated. My journey is to serve and help people who want to be elevated. And if you don't, that is okay, but don't waste my freaking time. That's all I know. I that's where I take it. Yeah. So let's talk more about the book, right? So your motivation and your mindset. How do salespeople balance, that need to meet target goals and all that stuff, and the pressure of maybe their manager and their career and holding on to it and being successful, as we were just talking about, and then maintaining that internal balance? What is that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I don't like, I think people get too caught up in the numbers. And I think I know that's like sacrilege to say that in a sales situation, but in a sense where I want to focus on as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, the numbers will come, right? I just want to make sure you're moving in the right direction. So when I'm working, even if somebody's struggling and I see, okay, it's going to happen. And I don't want to accept mediocre performance, but I also want to understand there's a balance between, hey, this is what you need to be doing. Now, if they're not doing it and they're not willing and they're not doing all the things we're talking about, that's a different issue. But the balance of, being the thing that I always look at to be is most important, people are very inconsistent. They do a lot one week, they don't do anything next week, they work, then they stop working, then they're good. You have to be consistent every week. I have a certain practice myself. I get up in the morning, I meditate, I do exercise, I go to work. I have my thing, and it's like, that's consistency. And I show up, and you know what? You and I know this. There are days that I made 150 phone calls and I didn't get one owner on the phone. That I'm like, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to go back and do it again. And I'm going to make 12 phone calls and I'm going to get 6 owners on the phone. But it's like, I got to keep that mentality of, I'm going to just keep doing what I do and keep getting better at what I do. And I know that the results will come. And I think that's an important thing for people to, because it's very, sales is very humbling, as you know. Yeah. And you could think you're great, and all of a sudden you hit a cold streak and you can't add 2 and 2. So it's a very humble, and it's going to happen to everybody, no matter how good you are. You see it with athletes, you see it with everybody. So it's the idea of, I have to consistently keep doing what I'm doing and getting better at what I'm doing and do it every single day. And that the numbers will come and the business will be fine and everything will go where it has to go. But if the people are not showing up and doing what they need to do, that is not happening. And that's where you have to be able to jump in and say, hey, listen, you're not pulling your weight. It's like, we're rowing the boat here, man. You're not rowing. Your oar is not moving. And if you can't row your oar, that's part of the harshness of being in the world, right? We're going to have to take you out and put a different person in there. Yeah. But doing it in a way where I'm going to give you all the support you need to do what you have to do and do your thing. But it's almost like there must be that mutual commitment. I'm committed to you. You must be committed to me.
Yeah. And I really want to go into that in a second here, but I really want to touch on something you said, because habits and consistent habits, okay? All the successful people that I know do things like you said. They have their habits and their rituals and things that they need to do in order to get their mind and their body right. And when you don't have that, when you start getting knocked off your post, you start going to bad habits, which is not doing what you need to do to reach your goals, which is essentially what happens. But if you can trust your habits and your rituals, when things get really tough for you, you'll be able to use those to get you back on track. Yeah. But if you don't have habits and things that you believe in for your core, mind and body to elevate or to keep those in line, you're going to get knocked off one real easy. And when you do get knocked off, you're going to go down a path that you can't really grasp onto anything. I hope that makes sense. And what I'm trying to
no, because now I'm just floating aimlessly. Yeah, I have no anchor to go back to. Right? I don't have a place to go back to, and but it's very common. We see this all the time with people, right? They start doing well. I've heard this in you too. Like people doing well and they stop doing what they were doing. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Well, I thought I had it. Well, you thought you had what? You only got there because you did those. It's like being in good shape. I didn't stop going to the gym because I got in good shape. I keep going. Yeah. It's the same. Like you're going to keep. So it sounds so. Here's the part of it that's frustrating on some level is it's so simplistic, but it sounds so simplistic, right? You want to be in good shape, have a good diet and exercise. It doesn't sound that complicated, but yet we've got obesity running rampant. So it's not the idea of what it is. It's like doing it on a consistent basis, showing up every day and keep, like you said, you have to have that consistency in what you're doing. It's kind of crazy because it's so easy in theory, but not in execution.
Yeah, it's so true. And I always say, even on the last show that I did last week, it was more of a personal show. I do a show now that's it's a sales performance show, but it's called Sharpen Your Axe. And essentially, I was talking on this last show about choose your hard, right? I mean, if you're a sales professional and your numbers suck and you're not earning the money you want to make, but you're not doing the hard things, I mean, it sucks, right? I mean, having your numbers flop is terrible. Not doing the right job is hard. It's a hard thing. But going out and doing the work, is that going to be hard? Of course it is. It's going to be
Yeah.
tough to go out and do the work and bust your ass and try to get everything to the level that you need it to be. So choose the one that's going to fulfill you the most. That's all I say. If you think that just sitting there on your ass is going to fulfill you the most, fine, sit on your ass. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you think that going out and really doing the work is going to be hard, but it's going to fulfill you, then go out and do the work. So I always say, choose your hard, but choose the one that's going to fulfill you the most. So I think that's really important. Now, the question I want to go back to is because we were talking about this. Better yet, as an owner, sales leader, motivating your team, how do you balance meeting targets and motivating your team versus leaning too hard and disintegrating your team? Okay. And listen, I think a lot of the athletes like you were yourself,
Mm.
we had those tough coaches, and those were always the ones that motivated me. But not everybody's like that. Okay, I
Yeah.
understand that. But how do you meet that balance?
Well, I think you bring up a good point here. And being a good leader, you understand the buttons for each person. Right. One person needs you to put your arm around them and say, "You okay?" One person needs to get a kick in the ass and say, "All right, stop jerking around and go do what you got to do. You know how to do this." So I think that's part of it is understanding. Like great leaders understand people, and everybody's different. Everybody, you can't use the same strategy. I mean, obviously, you have certain things that are universal, but
Yeah.
when you're managing people, this is not numbers. You're dealing with human beings who are going to have good and bad days, and it's you understanding how to touch them. The thing that has always been so effective for me was the level of mutual respect that I always had with the team and they always had with me.
Yeah.
That was worth currency. That was currency. And they would say, "Hey, Joe, I need help with something, whatever it is." They knew I'm there. I'm going to help you. I would say to them, "Hey, listen, I need you to go on a Saturday and go see this guy." They wouldn't even think twice. "You got it, Joe."
Yeah.
That was because they felt that I cared about them as people, not just as numbers. And one of the number one complaints I get, I'm sure you do too, is they treat us like a number. They treat us like if we don't do a sale this week, or if we don't do we're bad, and then we're good, and then we're bad. And you're taking people off their balance. You're talking about balancing people. Now they're not balanced anymore because now they feel like, I feel nervous. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And it's a bad feeling. Now, that being said, like we said earlier, both parties have to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
But that feeling of, hey, you know what? Joe's got my back. Dave's got my back. You and I have worked for those people. You do anything.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, right? Because they say, yeah, they know, and you can't fake it. It's just, if you care about people or you don't. And if you care about people and they know that, and I have people who are still in touch with me from 20 and 30 years ago, who will say, I never worked, all the years I'm working, I never had a situation working with someone the way you were. And I'm not saying I'm so great, but I'm just saying just the way I handle them as people. And most people don't do that. They treat people, in my opinion, in a poor manner and look at them as, either you can do it or you can't. If you can't succeed, I don't want you here. And, we're people. Now, obviously they have to perform, right? Because that's the job. But that currency of, hey, Joe's got my back. I want to do well. I want to do well because of the fact of this is how I'm being treated. That to me was the number one thing. I don't care what else you do.
Yeah, it's such a great point, man. I mean, it goes back to the idea of always setting expectations, being clear on that, and making sure that your people know that you're going to give them 100. Like anybody I work with, I'm going to give them 110%. Doesn't matter. Consulting, coaching, one-on-one training, any of that stuff. But I let it be known from the beginning, if I'm going to give you 110%, you got to give it right back.
That's it.
That's it. And listen, we all have our days, right? We always have our days and shit happens, and all that. But you can always tell, and it goes back to what we started with. I keep saying going back, but it's true. It's what you're willing to do.
Yeah.
There's some days you don't want to do it, but those are the days where you have to do it the most. Because those days that you don't want to do it and you actually do it is really where you're going to see a difference in elevation. And I can't stress that enough for everybody listening out there. The days where you don't want to do it and you actually go out and do it are the points where you make the biggest leap in your progress.
Yeah, sometimes, as the leader, I remember I was working with a team of trainers that I trained, and they were doing the training, and I would check in on, listen to what they were doing, and one of the guys who was really good, one morning he was just not there, and the first break, and I grabbed him and I said, "Hey, what's up? Are you okay?" And he said, "You know what? I had a bit of a rough night. This happened, that happened." I said, "I understand that." I said, "I know it happens." I said, "But I need you to do me a favor, just like kick it up." I said, we still have to produce our results for our people that we're training. We have a responsibility to them. And he's like, yeah. He said, "Thanks, Joe." He said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I just got off. My morning was whatever." Bang. He flipped the switch. He went right back in, and he went right back to what he was doing. So, sometimes, you have to do that. But, hey, I understand things are happening, but you got to get back on the track.
Yeah, that's it. Listen, man, I'm big into I want to ask about this because I'm starting to get bigger into this subconscious. I think I've always had an idea about it, but the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, right? And manifestation. What's your feeling on that stuff? I'm reading a great book right now called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy.
That was a good oldie.
It's an oldie, but damn, is it good.
Go on.
Especially the way it starts out. The only thing I don't like is the print is really small. It's taking me forever.
Those oldies are like that.
But they're super small. But he talks about, for those of you listening out there in the subconscious, but he gave a great example in the beginning. And he said, okay, think of your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is a boat, right? You're on a huge boat and you have a captain up there. That's your conscious mind looking out over the sea, calling out to the workers under deck. That's your subconscious, right? They have to trust the captain. If the captain tells them, "Hey, add more coal, do this, turn right, turn left," whatever they're doing down there, they have to trust in the fact that the captain is going to guide them in the right way. And he used this analogy in saying that's just like your subconscious and your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is the captain telling you, the people below, to your subconscious mind, what's happening. And you have to trust it. So if you put in your conscious mind bad ideas, shitty thoughts, your subconscious is just going to assume that that's the right thing, right? And vice versa. If you put good thoughts into your conscious mind, it's your subconscious is going to eat that up. But I thought that was such an interesting story in that book. But what is your take on manifestation, subconscious, and the conscious mind?
So I studied a lot of psychology, and I actually took courses as well just to learn. I started with the brain before I got into the energy. So I started with the mind first. So the thing that you learn about the mind is your conscious mind is the thinking part of you. Thinks, judges, reasons, chooses, makes a decision. Hey, you know what? I'm going to wear this shirt instead of this shirt. That's kind of what your conscious mind is doing all day. It's kind of working like that. Your subconscious is where you hold your feelings, your emotions, your beliefs. All that stuff is in there. Now, the big differentiator to me, as I was learning this, was your conscious mind is really only functioning when you're awake. And your subconscious mind is functioning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I know which one has got more juice because that one's never sleeping. So that's why, because that one's going 24/7. So that's why, that this happens all the time, right? You're thinking of something, you go to bed, you say, I couldn't figure that out. In the morning, you had the answer because your subconscious kept working on it, right? So it's like, what am I feeding my subconscious? Now, this is where you have to be the gatekeeper of your thoughts, right? If I'm always thinking about being sick, then I'm feeding that into my subconscious. And what happens is the subconscious holds the beliefs. So that's why it's back to, it doesn't matter what I do, it's what I believe is true. But when I and I always say to people, watch the words you use. I'm the word police. I'm a maniac of words. So I'm like, you keep saying this, you keep saying this, you keep saying this. So it's like, oh, I did. So it's like, oh, okay. Oh, this is hard. Oh, this is difficult. Oh, so it's like, okay, you're feeding your subconscious. And then when you're sleeping, all those thoughts are building up steam in your mind. So now you wake up in the morning, and what'd you wake up with? Did you wake up with the guy saying, I need an idea for this new thing, or I'm working on this idea. I can't seem to get it, but I got to really keep it. And then you wake up and your subconscious said, okay, I'm going to figure it out for you. So to me, I want to make my mind work 24/7. So I'm going to keep feeding good stuff into it, right? I'm going to keep feeding stuff into it that I want. So the manifestation is very simple. Whatever I'm feeding the subconscious, which means whatever I'm thinking about, is I'm feeding that all the time, and I'm creating based off what I feel, not what I do. This is the biggest lesson for people. It's not what you do, because people say, I did everything. You know how many people have said to me, you too, I did everything right, it didn't work. Why? Because unconsciously you don't believe you can. That's the difference. Or there's something in your unconscious that you're holding, or a fear that's holding you back. That's the difference. But if you have to catch yourself all day, and listen, we've all been there, we get upset, we have a bad day, whatever it is. But you want to stay, if I can stay 90% of the time in a good space, hey, I'm going to keep focusing on what I want. I'm going to keep focusing on what I want. I'm going to keep. So I always say to people, keep focusing on what you want to create, not what you have or not what you don't think you can create. Keep there, stay there, stay there. And then your subconscious starts saying, okay, I'm going to start helping you get there and figure out how to get there. And also, I'll give you another high level concept of manifestation.
Okay.
Everything is energy and frequency and vibration, right? So what happens is when your frequency, let's say I want to get here, but my frequency is here. So I'm not that happening, right? My frequencies are not aligned. So now, as I keep elevating my frequency, what I start to do is I start to get into the alignment of this right opportunity or this right client, this right situation. So now the magic happens when the frequencies align, similar to how we met, right? Same exact thing. I've been here in Florida doing some work with SkyCal. I'm looking for some new opportunities to work with, going on for quite a while. But what did I do? Got up every day. I'm doing my thing. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm like, all right, it's not happening, but I'm going to keep working on it. And the other part of it is when we get into, I can get into some really weird stuff too, but we also have karma. We also have different things. And we also have the divine timing of the universe. So one of the things that people don't, everybody wants instant gratification.
Right.
Right. I want it. I want this. I want it tomorrow. But one of the things you learn is the divine timing of the universe is perfect. And whatever you went through or difficulties or challenges were preparing you for the opportunity that is coming. Now, the problem for us as humans is your soul sees your whole life and we don't, because we're not supposed to. But I don't know, did you ever see the movie Cinderella Man?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Jimmy Braddock, who was a real fighter, was up-and-coming fighter, championship, loses a championship fight. The depression comes. He gets hurt a couple of times, can't fight anymore. He goes from successful fighter, he's got a family, whatever it is, depression, he's got no money, can't fight anymore, breaks his hand. All these terrible things happen to him. And he's trying to get fights and he can't do it. And he ends up getting a job on the docks in New Jersey, if you remember. Yeah. And he's got to walk that whole long walk every day. And he breaks his right hand. And the criticism of Braddock was he couldn't use his left hand. And because he broke his right hand, he had to use his left hand to pick up the bales on the docks. Ends up, again, comes along, a fight comes up at Madison Square Garden, and the guy was supposed to fight right before the championship, couldn't do it, got hurt. They needed somebody to throw in there. His manager says, listen, they'll let you fight this fight. You just there to get knocked out and just be kind of, they call it meat in the boxing game. And he goes in the ring, and long story short, all of a sudden he goes in, he's moving all around, he's moving better than ever before. He uses his left hand, he knocks the guy out. A year later, he's the heavyweight champion of the world. Now, when you look at the story, without the negativity that we would perceive, him walking and, had to do all that walking, strengthening his legs, using his left hand. Now, again, when we're going through hard times in life, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, this is great. Yeah, this is getting me ready. This is getting me ready for something that I'm not seeing yet. But it's kind of like understanding that there is divine timing and you are learning things, or you are acquiring skills, or you are dealing with issues, that's part of it too, to get you ready for the next opportunity that's going to come your way. And that's how, it sounds a little complicated, but it really is just a matter of understanding that sometimes you're not ready for that thing that you want, and it's going to take time for you to be ready. And you have to understand that. And, of course you have to get through those tough times, which is part of life. But that's how the alignment of the manifestation really, I know that was kind of a long answer. Hopefully
No,
that was clear.
it's a very clear answer on my side, because I always say if you're doing the right things and there's something you want to achieve and you're doing the right things, the universe will transpire with you to get
Yeah.
it done. And it might not be on your terms or when you want it, but if you trust the process and you keep putting in the work, the universe is going to make things happen and fall your way to get you to where you need. So I think it's a fantastic answer, and so great, man. Listen, I can't believe it's already been 50 minutes. This has been fantastic. I have enjoyed
Really
having
great.
you on as a guest here. This is it's. I hope you all enjoyed this show. Listen back to some of those segments, because there were some really good ones there, especially at the beginning when we talked about doing what you need, doing more than what you're asked. I think you just got to pay attention to that. But listen, if someone wants to find you or they want to pick up your book, where can they go, check you out, connect with you, or even get your book?
Yeah, well, a book is on Amazon, so you can go to Spiritual Selling 2.0 is what it looks like. I'll just hold it up so everybody can see. So it's got the 2.0 on top. So Spiritual Selling 2.0.
My copy.
It's got a copy as well. You can go there, or go to spiritualselling.com. I have a free webinar there you can get instant access to. And you could also go to my main site is joenunz.com, or just Google my name. I'll come up and find out more about what I do. I do, like I said, I do a lot of stuff. I have a lot of virtual product and stuff online too, where I have a spiritual selling home study course and things like that. Somebody wants to get more in depth or learns better that way, it's videos that they can get and learn about how to use these principles in their business. So that'd be the best way for them to rate.
Great, man. Great. He is Joe Nunziata. I am Dave Slyman, and we want to thank you for being here. Check us out at salesproformance.com. Like the show, share the show. Joe, it's been great having you on as a guest. I know we're going to be doing more work together down the road. It's really been great getting to know you, and I look forward to doing some more stuff as we go down. So everybody, thanks for being here today, and we will see you next time. Thank you.